We began to see more and more environmental problems around the globe in the 50s and 60s and going into the 70s. As there was economic growth in countries all around the world, people were taking natural resources and transforming those resources into products that they wanted. And in the process of transforming trees into furniture and homes and so on, you cut down forests. In the process of creating energy, you burn coal to generate electricity, and you put pollutants into the sky. It was commonly believed that the only way to protect the environment was to have the government step in and make up for the mistakes of the marketplace, what was considered market failure. And it was interesting in this period of time, almost every economics book that dealt with environmental issues was under the impression that the source of environmental degradation, environmental problems in the world, was basically the profit system. That people and businessmen and corporations and their desire to make profits at the lowest possible cost to themselves, they would create pollutants and then they would dump these pollutants into the skies, into the rivers and so on. The opposite side of that, the flip side of that, was that it was believed that because markets were characterized by pollution, what were called negative externalities, the solution to this may well lie in the Soviet countries, because it was assumed that in the Soviet countries that industry is run for the good of all the people, good for the nation, and that you would look into these Soviet countries and you would find very little pollution. You would find sort of an environmental heaven. In the 70s, people began to look behind the Iron Curtain, and they were horrified. Economist after economist saw that there were some of the worst environmental problems on the planet, that there were far worse problems than they had in the United States or in Western Europe. And that was sort of a perplexing problem for a lot of people. And you tie that in the same period, in the late 60s, you had large numbers of students around the world, young people, who decided that they wanted to protect the planet. It became very, very, very fashionable. Student revolution with the student uprising and so on in the late 60s, the anti-war movement, the hundreds of thousands of students that were marching down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., they were all carrying their red flags, and they had Chairman Mao's little red book. And they knew that capitalism was evil, it was destroying the planet, and we had to get rid of capitalism. And not too long after that, the war in Vietnam ended. But it was interesting that all these young kids then, who had sort of been radicalized and were sort of anti-free market, anti-capitalism, anti-profit system, anti-private property rights, kept on marching. Except what they did, they switched their Bible. Instead of holding up Chairman Mao's little red book, they were holding up Rachel Carson's little green book. Because they had much the same philosophy. The belief was capitalism did not care about the planet, and lots of these kids, it was just a simple flip from them, from marching for Chairman Mao to marching for the Greens. That was the origin of the environmental movement, that whole period. And this also brought about the birth of what was called Earth Day. The first Earth Day was held on April 22nd, 1970, Earth Day 1. Coincidentally or not, that happens to be Lenin's birthday. And I knew lots of the young kids who were marching at that time, and they thought that was funny. They thought that was a joke. They thought that was an in-your-face kind of thing, because that fit in with their whole philosophy, that we'd celebrate Earth Day on Lenin's birthday because we knew it was capitalism that was destroying the environment.